Okay, guys. All right, so let's continue on with our discussion today. So I've shared for you, I posted this article, call it article. It has to do with the Ford Pinto case from, let's see, what year was that? I mean, I learned about this over 20 years ago, but let's see. So 1968, okay. All right. So basically the summation of the case here was that the Ford Pinto, a car, had a defect in it that led to certain problems, such as if it got hit in a certain way, it could cause the car to catch on fire. It could cause people to die, from vehicle explosions and stuff like that. And so basically what happened was, so we just read through this, the Ford company had a new design that would decrease this defect, right? Decrease the possibility of the Pinto from exploding. The cost for the recall, to be able to get all the cars back, to be able to make all the changes, would have been 11. So according to the math here, $11 per car, right? And the analysis showing that the new design would result in 180 less deaths. So basically what they did was they did this risk-benefit analysis to determine whether or not it would cost more to fix all of the cars, or would it cost more due to lawsuits and other types of payouts if people died. Would it cost more to basically settle lawsuits when they came? And what they decided was that it would cost more to fix the cars. It would cost more financially, right? So basically, here you go. The cost would have been, $137 million, which, in 1968 was a lot more than it is today, versus the almost $50 million to deal with deaths, injuries, car damages, and all that stuff if there was no design change, if there was no change to the existing cars. Now, when this cost-benefit analysis, risk-benefit analysis was done and they made that decision, it did come out during some of the legal cases brought against Ford that they had done this, that they had basically chosen to put a value, if you will, a financial value on the cost of a human life. So, how can we put a price on a human life is basically what part of the decision was. So let's see, I think, does it say it in this article or was it in? Let's see. Does it say that in the results? I'm trying to remember I'm trying to see if it says it in this article or if it was in another one that I saw. I don't see it here in the text is so small. But basically, Ford ended up paying a lot out as a result of this, and ended up having, if I remember correctly, to do the change to the design anyway. So the reason why I bring all this up is because the the question that is before us today is it ethical to do a cost benefit analysis in a situation like this? Is it, what are the, what is the problem, or is there a problem with saying, you know what, it's going to cost the company a lot of money and a lot of, issues for people if we recall all the cars, versus what will be the cost if we have the problems that the design defect will end up causing. No, maybe I said that in a not clear way. The question before us is this, because this isn't the first time all right. Oh, but on the other side of that one, Seth, is many people will often bring up as well, what if the person who dies is like a Hitler or something, right? You'll take the risk to allow a Hitler to die versus and allow an Einstein to die in the same. What if Hitler and Einstein were riding in the same car? No. Are you saying you would take that risk? You would take the risk of allowing a Hitler to live, or take the risk of allowing the opposite?
If we allow both of them to live, there's a lot of echo. Okay. If we allow both of them to live, there's always the opportunity later to deal with someone like Hitler. But if we allow people to die, you can't bring Einstein back and make him a zombie or something.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So on the general question, what made this considered to be an unethical practice? What made this, because a cost benefit analysis or a risk benefit analysis is not an uncommon thing. It happens all the time. We are always trying to determine the trade-offs of action A. What is the cost and the risk? What is the cost and the benefit of option A? What's the cost and the benefit of option B? What made this different?
As it says in the text, that you can't put a price on human life.
Right. Now, so question, what if both option A and option B have a potential human life cost? Is it okay then? I'll give you an example from today's news. Okay, I don't know if you guys have if you guys keep up with American news quite as much as I do, and I don't even keep up with it nearly as much as some of my friends. But in America, they decided to put a pause on one of the vaccines for the pandemic, for the COVID virus. And the reason why was because they found that some of the people who received the vaccine, there's evidence that they developed blood clots. Now, one of them died and one of them is in critical condition, but apparently of all the, I don't remember how many thousands or millions or whatever of people that received this vaccine, 6 people developed blood clots, and they were all women aged 18 to 48. Okay. So in America, they've put a pause where no one else can receive this vaccine for the time being until they've studied it more thoroughly to make sure that, to find out what is the likelihood that these blood clots came from the vaccine. So in a sense, this was kind of a risk benefit analysis they're trying to figure out, right? Because the question is, they're trying to determine how many people will we save from blood clots by stopping the vaccine versus how many people will we risk, more to this pandemic by not giving the vaccine, by pausing it, right? So is that ethical? Is it okay to, if both sides of the equation is about human life? And does that make it any different? Is that clear on what I just said? Because I know that.
Actually, I lost the track.
Okay, let me put it here. Let's see here. I'll pull up another one here. Another. Guess I can pull up this here. Let's see here. See if this shows up. So basically, what happened was, so in the car case, we stated that what happened was the car was found to have a defect, was found to have a problem, and people could die or get injured as a result of this defect. The company decided that the cost associated with fixing the problem, okay, was more than the financial cost of leaving the problem as is and dealing with the legal fights later, dealing with the law cases, the lawsuits later. And as Seth pointed out, if you look in the text of the article that I shared, what it says is that part of the problem was that the company had essentially put a price tag, a dollar value on the cost of a human life. All right. But then I'm asking about today's news. So in today's news, one of the vaccines, this Johnson & Johnson vaccine that had been released, it was, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the first vaccine for this COVID pandemic that is a one-shot vaccine. It's the somebody can correct me if you know differently, but I believe this was the first one that said you can take one shot and that's it. You don't have to take a second shot 3 weeks later. And what happened was some people, 6 women to be precise, developed blood clots after getting the vaccine. One of them died, and one of them is in critical condition in the hospital, according to the latest report. So they put a pause. They said, we're going to stop giving this vaccine for the time being while we can study it more. But the question now before us is, okay, is it possible that some people will contract this virus and die or get some other type of negative consequence because they're not getting the vaccine right now?
I think that question is kind of about other available vaccines, because let's say if we had only a single vaccine available, the Johnson's one, and some people died because of the side effects, but next to that, there are multiple people will live because of that vaccine, normally would die. But there's still a ethical question. That's not a simple question that we can answer. Yes, it should be like that. But if you ask me, because of 6 people developed blood clots, usage of the vaccine shouldn't be prohibited, because we are in the somehow hard times, and we need to be able to produce as many vaccines as possible. Maybe we can restrict the use of Johnson's and Johnson's vaccine usage on certain range of age women, so that we can still have benefit of the vaccine for younger men or older men. But in my case, I think the answer should be simple. I don't know why they stopped producing and usage of the vaccine. They should be continuing the use of the vaccine, and people, as long as aware of the risk and they are getting the vaccine voluntarily, I think there should be no ethical concern in this case. But that's my point of view. Every person can have different point of view.
No, yeah, I mean, and you're bringing up a very important point here, Melly, because that's the thing with a lot of these ethical questions is there isn't a simple. Ethics is not like mathematics, right? It's not like you can't say 2 + 2 = 4 every time, right? Or sometimes 2 + 2 = 5. No, anyway, there's an old joke. Anyway, you can't just say, oh, 6 people, because the question would be, because the question you might ask, like, because you said 6 people, even if all 6 people died, which we hope that doesn't happen, but even if all 6 people died, that's not a lot of people. But then what about, okay, so what about 7, 8? At what number do we get to the number of people that develop blood clots that it's significant enough for us to pause the vaccine distribution? All right.
All right. So in that case, I think percentage of the people who survives and percentage of the people who will die because of the vaccine comes to play rather than the pure numbers. Let's say if vaccine kills 0.1% of the people and saves 4% of the people, when we compare them, there is a 40 times difference, beneficial difference between deaths and survives, and therefore I think usage of the vaccine would be reasonable. But as you said, maybe there are some legal concerns if people die because of the side effects, and they can maybe sue the company and get big sums of money. That's the problem of the system, I think, because as long as you know the possible side effects and agreed its use on you, then you shouldn't complain if you die. Maybe that's a bit harsh of statement, but that's how I think.
Yeah.
So,
now I will say, go ahead, Bennett.
So, Professor, yeah, I was gonna say about that, something about that. I mean, can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean, about the case numbers, I mean, the died people numbers, we should inform the people and make a awareness. I mean, if there's any side effect or a defect in any product, in this case, vaccines, we had better let the people know about them. Otherwise, it won't be ethical thing. I mean, according to me.
So, Mehmet, what you're saying is you think that they should continue giving the vaccine, but they should let people know that, hey, this is something that occurred in, some people who received this vaccine. Like, continue giving it, but just make this new information known, right? That's what you're saying?
I mean, how can I say that? So yeah, they should make the people, inform the people, and I mean the case number is too high. They must stop the produce the vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like right here it's saying, 6 reported cases out of 6.8 million doses. Right? Small number of cases for that many doses, right? So why do you think then that they decided to stop using the vaccine because of such a small number of cases?
So I think that this represents a previously unknown risk. They don't have enough data to really quantify it, and they can't make people aware of the risk if they don't have the data to be able to explain. So as it says, they're out of an abundance of caution.
I think I lost you. You said out of an abundance of caution. Did you say anything after that, Seth?
No, nothing after that.
Okay. Yeah, you're talking about this part here, the out of abundance of caution. All right.
I think there is also a statistical problem here. Just because 6 people are found out that they have a blood clot, it doesn't mean that other people doesn't have blood clots. And blood clots can be really sneaky, can stay in your body up to several years, and you may not notice its existence, and it may cause long-term problems. Maybe they are afraid of that because maybe the rate is way, way higher than what's found out right now. So maybe they want to, as Seth said, investigate the situation and see what's the real percentage of risk. Maybe it's too high, maybe it's not too high.
Yeah, good point. So how should they go about getting more data? Should they call in all those 6.8 million people who received this vaccine and have them specifically tested for blood clots?
They often
That's a
have.
hard question. I don't think there is even enough infrastructure to do that. Even if you do them by order, having a scans is not as simple as doing vaccines. So yeah, that would take quite high time. I don't know. I don't have expertise in statistics, but maybe they can pick a group of people, of 1,000 people, and only scan on them to see the bigger picture. Maybe that would work.
They often also have follow-up questionnaires to patients as a routine thing in many medical things. And then also they say if you develop headache, abdominal pain, etc., to contact a healthcare provider. So they'll have data that way. So there's many different avenues to get that data, I think.
Yeah.
And also, I mean that the making blood clots, for example, it might increase in the future. I mean the blood clots. We cannot predict it very well sometimes, and if it won't be predict very well, it might be cause a disaster. So it should be really controlled.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up, Mehmet, there is part of one of the articles that I read about this, or something that I read about this, was what makes this so difficult, complex, is the blood clot issue. It's a rare thing. So this is a rare circumstance, but it's also a very serious circumstance, right? It's imagine if this were the side effect were I don't know, something bad, but not like life threatening, like uncontrolled hiccups or something. I had hiccups yesterday like 5 times, couldn't get rid of them. If it was uncontrolled and you guys should all be glad I don't have them today. But uncontrolled hiccups, for 3 weeks, right, was a side effect. I think most people would be like, yeah, okay, that's pretty bad. And even if that happened to, 10% of the people who got the vaccine, I think people would be like, I think people might say, you know what, that's bad. That's not I don't want that, but it's not life threatening. And so, man, it's not that big a deal, right? But blood clots are a different story. So even though only a small number of people have been found to have them, it's still a very serious condition. And so I think that's what makes this such a complicated issue, right? Um, but the question is so what if at the end of this thing it's determined that some other cause that was not related to the vaccine was the reason for the blood clots in these particular six people, and they paused the vaccine, and instead it's found that X number of 100 people died because of the COVID virus as a result of pausing the vaccine. Are there potential issues that could come? Would people be would people then be justified in suing the American government over the death of their loved one in this situation? Or do you think that because in this case the cost, in a sense, the American government did a cost benefit analysis to say pausing is going to give us the most benefit, continuing with the vaccine gives us the most cost. And so two, three, dirty day neck. I don't know day neck. Yeah. Double-edged sword. Yeah. So it's like there's an old American English saying that I can't say on the recording that kind of means this. And Seth, you'd probably know what I'm talking about. That I can't really use that kind of language on a recorded call. So you're something if you do and something if you don't kind of thing, right? So would people who lost loved ones due to the COVID virus who might have otherwise received a Johnson & Johnson vaccine, would they be justified in suing the American government over that? Would that be a valid thing?
I think the difference here is with the COVID situation, there is already a lot of data and it's been characterized fairly well. So the risks are somewhat well known. Whereas this situation presents a very unknown risk. So that's why I think they say out of abundance of caution, because they don't know enough about this new situation. They have 6 reported cases. Tomorrow it could be 700. We don't know. So for that reason, I think they justify taking this cautious approach, especially since there's more known about COVID-19 than this new effect.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying they're probably okay. They're probably safe from a lawsuit/ethical standpoint because the reason they paused it is because there's a lot more unknowns involved in continuing getting the vaccine.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. But is there a risk? Is there a risk in more people dying by choosing to pause the vaccine?
There is a risk that has been established. They know approximately what that risk is. And the point of this decision that they made, very likely, was that they don't know what this risk of continuing the vaccine, at least their particular one, they don't know what this risk really is. Could it be worse than the COVID-19? Maybe they don't have enough data yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as usual, guys, I don't have an answer for these questions because let's see, there's what, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 13 of us. There's 13 of us on this call right now, and there's probably 14 different opinions about how to handle these things. But because I can't ever decide on one, I can't decide on one opinion. Right? So here's the question then. So here's another question then, based back to the Ford Pinto case then. Why was it not okay? Because what about the unknowns versus known there? Because it would, in their cost benefit and their risk benefit analysis, right? They didn't know. They didn't know for sure that fixing the defect would result in how many fewer deaths. Right. So if we flip back over to that one. All right. So they estimated, right, that the new design would result in, they estimated, they don't know that. They don't know that for sure how many fewer deaths would result. Right? Because anytime you get into a car accident, there's a risk of death. All right. Yeah. Which I guess those things were known. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So I guess are we coming to the conclusion that, okay, if a risk benefit analysis involves human life on one side and only finances on the other, then that's not okay. But a risk benefit analysis with human life on one side and human life on the other is okay, right? Is that what we've come to the conclusion of?
I think it's a little more complicated than that when it comes to weighing risks of actions where the consequences are life on regardless of the action. It makes it much more complicated. And so it's not that it's okay, it's that you don't have much other choice.
That you have to choose an option A or option B.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I understand your point there, Mehmet Telly, because especially like for me, like my wife has asthma, and because this particular virus is a respiratory disease, we've known since the very beginning that if she were to get this virus, that it would be much more problematic and even deadly for her than for, say, me or our children. And so we did a lot. We have done a lot of precautions to try to reduce the risk of her getting the virus. by comparison to me or to the kids. And so I understand what you're saying, specifically if they're in high risk, you know. But I understand you have a sense of acceptable risk. So for me, I had a much higher threshold of acceptable risk of what I was willing to engage in compared to my wife. Yeah. So. Yeah, but I think one of the big points is that someone has pointed out that with this particular situation with the vaccine, is right now we're sitting at 1 in a million, 1 in a million people who receive the vaccine getting the blood clots, but we don't know for sure if that's the final number. We don't know, are there, you know, as I think Meli pointed out, and maybe Mehmet also mentioned as well, that blood clots are something that someone could have them and not know it, right? That it could sit around for years and not even know it. So of those 6.8 million people, a lot more than just those 6 could have these blood clots, and we are not aware yet. All right. Let's see, Beric, your comment. So you're saying maybe part of the solution, as far as the Ford Pinto case, would be for the government to use tax incentives or other types of financial incentives to encourage them to implement safety features. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, it's a good idea. I have an article. I gotta make a note. I'm gonna make a note of these because now I have another article that I want to send you. It has nothing to do with safety stuff, but your comment just made me think of it. So I'm gonna go find it because I know where to look for it. And this is an example. So I'm gonna post it here. This is an example of where someone had incentive to do things poorly the first time and then quote unquote fix the problem. So you could be incentivizing this with this thing. So that is a weird picture. But it is a good idea. I think that's a good idea to try to use incentives to encourage companies to implement safety. So, but it is kind of so this was for me, this was an interesting question to come up with today, because I knew I wanted to do this Ford Pinto case today, but then almost like, you know, coincidentally, you know, by magic or something, this vaccine story that also is a trade-off, is a benefit of option A versus, you know, cost benefit of option A, cost benefit of option B kind of thing, came up out of nowhere. It's tough, right? It's tough to make these decisions. But I think we need to ask these hard questions and be able to try to figure out our answers. Ah, yeah, okay. So you're talking about jail time or even big, huge fines, which I think if you look at the history of this Ford Pinto case here, I think you see that. I think they received a huge penalty because it was discovered that they had done this.
I was thinking more along the lines of You have, like, say, a law that says, like in the Ford Pinto case, they knew about this beforehand. And so then the government analyzes the situation, says, okay, you knew about this beforehand, so your privilege to conduct business is rescinded, which means that the company can no longer operate. You start out with a law like that, and then you're going to have the companies trying to lobby Congress to get the penalties for these things reduced. And then, so if you start out with very severe punishments and they go through this lobby process, maybe it will actually come down to something that's amenable to everyone and still be an effective deterrent.
So so huge penalty, yeah. Yeah. All right. So by the way, this Ford Pinto case and maybe even the Johnson and Johnson, actually I think I should say that the other way around. The vaccine case and maybe the Ford Pinto case too. For those of you who are, let's see, doing the trolley so Barrick, oh, you're the only one that signed up for the trolley problem so far. The trolley problem, this kind of goes right into that that discussion of, you know, which way, because in the trolley problem, it's specifically let the trolley go and kill 5 people or do something that causes it to kill 1 person. And so in a lot of ways, that's kind of what this Johnson and Johnson question is all about. This vaccine question is all about, is do we allow this to just continue on and possibly risk hurting people? Do we do something that we know, you know, could hurt somebody? Right. So, you know, which even in that situation, both of those, with the trolley problem, both sides is both sides are kind of known in the sense that one way is known 5 people on the track, the other way is known 1 person on the track, right? And so the question is, does the death of 1 automatically count as better than the death of 5, right? And it's tougher than it sounds. So, but I'm looking forward to Barrick's discussion on that. So, all right, guys. Well, I think we've exhausted this one again, just as, you know, and I know you guys are probably getting tired of coming to the end of these discussions with no solid answers, but that's life, right? That's how it works, is we don't get solid answers while we're here on this earth, right? So thanks for the discussion, and I hope that being able to hear the points of view of other people has been helpful. I hope it is every week. So I'll see you guys next week, and we will continue on with this discussion. And I think in 2 weeks, in either 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I haven't decided yet, we'll start the presentations. Okay, but I'll make sure to message you guys, you know, well in advance to let you know how we're going to be doing that. All right. Thanks, guys. I will see you 1 week from today. Have a good rest of the week.